What's up, everybody? AG Sports, having come back for a second video. I definitely have some numbers for you guys. I know the last videos, the last two, I would say, have really been more primarily just like giving of the picks and kind of a little bit of maybe reasoning behind, but not a lot of like numbers and algorithm and all that kind of stuff. So if you're maybe wondering why that's happening, and it's not just me being an idiot, it's because the playoffs are a much harder portion of the season to handicap mathematically. And what does that mean exactly? Well, one of the things you'll probably hear a lot if you continue listening to gambling stuff and podcasts and all that kind of stuff, regardless of what sport you're talking about, the one thing that we really truly cannot handicap is motivation. Whether it's basketball, football, whatever, like I said, whatever sport it is, you have guys that are out there, the regular season, they're just going to do what they got to do to stay on the team, get a check, whatever. They're going to play their role. They know what it is. Once we get into the postseason, we have these guys come out and they will have their just like all-star moments. They're going to put out everything. They really, really want to win it. They really want to get there. And not to say that, obviously there's games that they don't want to win, right? Like that's not the case. But in the postseason, it's not just one guy. It's not just like, oh, well, the left tackle really, really wants to block today. He's in the mood to play today. No, it's everybody in the organization. The coach is going to pull out all the stops. They're going to stay in the lab, all week, all day, every day. The families of all these players, coaches, staff, they are all aware of what's going on. It's getting down to the very most important portion of the season, what they've all been working for. They're not about to, take their foot off the gas. So for that reason, a lot of times when the numbers that we have come out, they're not as effective as you would like. And a lot of times that leads to a lot of people losing money in the postseason because of, just a over-reliance on numbers. You really have to look at like stylistic kind of plays. What have we maybe seen in the past? What do we expect certain coaches to do and project more so than just looking back at trends? And that's very, very hard. And it does take a level of just kind of like guesswork and art because you're thinking of, well, what can this happen? Especially in a week like this where both of these games are actually rematches. It's not just a matter of like, well, this team likes to run or this team likes to pass. It's, okay, we saw this game happen once already or twice. What is Coach A going to do to counteract what the differences were from Coach B? And what is this coach going to maybe try to do to counter that? Or where were the deficiencies at and all that kind of stuff? So it's a whole like chess match here. And I think that people who don't really like football, don't understand football, don't give it the time of day. And I've heard people say like, it's just a bunch of big guys running at each other. On the surface level, that's very true. Obviously, there's a lot of very, very, very big men trying to crush other very, very big men. And that's cool. That's why a lot of people like to watch it. They just kind of like for boxing, right? Like they want to see a knockout. They don't give a shit about how you slip the jab and whatever else. Like they're not worried about that. For guys like us, and I say us because if you're listening to the video, you're probably one of us. We want to know these little intricacies and what is going on, what's going on mentally with these coaches, with the players, all that kind of stuff. So anyways, enough of the monologue. Let's get into some of these numbers. First thing I want to do, and yes, there are going to be picks. There's actually 2 picks I'm adding to the card for this week. Was able to really dive into these 2 games and get a lot of info on it. Surprisingly enough, there's not a lot of video content being put out this week or podcast content. A lot of the podcast guys that were just fantasy podcasters, they fell off the planet like weeks ago. Even gambling guys, they're only doing like 30 minutes this week because there's only 2 games to talk about, or they're stretching stuff into like these really obscure like props from like the 4th string running back that maybe he gets, and who gives a shit, right? Like I'm not gonna bet on that. So let's look at some of the bigger stuff that maybe interests you more, and I know interests me for sure. So first of all, the spreads are around key numbers, right, for both of these games. We have the Chiefs as 7-point favorites, the Rams as 3.5-point favorites. So let's see how those numbers kind of match up to what previous years have done and what we've seen in these games. Last year, the 2 games ended up being a 5-point differential and a 14-point differential. So we had one close game, one score game as we would call it, and then a second one that was a 2-score game. Now, The Chiefs and the Bills, obviously we just saw that game happen again last week, but that was of course going to be a higher scoring game. That was expected. The Packers, Buccaneers, even last year we weren't really sure what we were going to get from that. We thought it'd be a higher scoring game because it was Rodgers versus Brady, but again, just kind of, we weren't entirely sure, but yes, they did both end up being higher scoring games. So a couple of notes we want to take from this. One, kind of splitting it, like there could be one close game and one blowout, and maybe that's what we should expect, but let's dive a little bit further back, right? But other than that, let's take note that both of these games were higher scoring games, and that is because of exactly what I was just telling you. These coaches are not going to pull any punches this week. They're not trying to save anything for next week. They're not trying to save anything. They're not trying to, keep their players from getting hurt or anything like that. They're going to go all out. And if that means that they're going to go out and try to have a shootout with the other team, that's what's going to happen. If a team gets down in this game, they're not going to say, okay, well, let's just run it, and see if we can break a big one, and maybe then we'll try to do something. No, they're going to go for it from the very, very first kickoff. Now, maybe that entails some running because, the Chiefs can't stop the run, or the Bengals can't stop the run, or the Rams can't stop the run. Basically, none of them can stop the run. But does that mean that they're going to just keep running the ball? No. All of these teams understand that they want to get out to an early lead. They want to build that lead, and then once they have it, the safest way for them to play is to continue building upon that lead. The Chiefs know that because they have been the ones coming back on teams. The Bills, obviously, they knew that, but this didn't work out for them last week. But on the other side, we have the Rams and, the 49ers. And the Rams know that they have to do that because earlier this season, just a couple weeks ago, they were up 17-3 at halftime and they lost the game. So they know they cannot just ease up and kind of take their foot off the gas. Some coaches may still want to do that because that's just their natural tendency. But when it comes time to, actually win this game, all of these games we should kind of be looking at what, again, the Bills and Chiefs did last week. They're going to do what they need to do to try and win the game, or at least be in a position to win the game when those last 2 minutes hit the clock. So that's going back to just last year. Let's look at the year prior to that. This is from 2019. So 35-24. Obviously, the Chiefs were in this one again. Now, keep in mind, last year they scored 38 points. The year before that, they scored 35. So they're, again, consistently putting out high numbers in this AFC Championship game. They did beat the Titans at 35-24. Titans, again, we would typically call them like a slower team, a running team, all that kind of stuff. We just saw it last week. They were only able to put up like 16 points, I believe it was, against the Bengals. So the fact that the Chiefs pushed them into getting up to 24 points is saying something. And the fact that the Titans were willing to get so aggressive that they outscored, what they would have done this year, kind of speaks a lot because they knew they needed to keep up with the Chiefs. The other side of that was the Packers and the 49ers. Again, this is another blowout, 37-20. 49ers just putting up huge numbers for a team that we, again, expected to be kind of a slower team, definitely putting up a big number. So in total, we have one that's at 59 and the other one's that's at 57. So two higher scoring games, two really blowouts. One was 11 points, the other one was 17. So two blowout games and two higher scoring games going back to 2019. So again, we're kind of seeing at least a little bit of a trend here in the fact that they were higher scoring games. And we're seeing some blowouts, but let's go back one more year, and that does change a little bit. Going back to 2018, 26-23, very, very close game with the Rams and the Saints. Still a high scoring game at 49, so it's not low by any means, but it was not a super high scoring game. It's not getting into the 60s or 70s, and it is a close game. Now, this is probably one of the better matchups that's happened back then, or even now, aside from the Bills Chiefs last week. And sorry, I keep referencing that game because it was just such a damn good game. I'm still thinking about it. But in this matchup here, we had Sean Bayton versus Sean McVay. We had just good overall team versus good overall team. The Rams were able to get over the Saints, even with Jared Goff, which that's a whole other issue. I don't know how the hell Sean McVay did that. But, again, we see a somewhat higher scoring game, and we also see that this one is a little bit closer. So far we have 3 blowouts and 2 close games. And if we look at the very last game here, the Chiefs-Patriots game, this was the last time that anybody beat the Chiefs in this AFC Championship game. And just take a second to look at what it took to beat this team, even going back to 2018, which was the first year Mahomes really started. It took, first of all, having Tom Brady. Secondly, it took 37 points to beat that team, and that was a much more inexperienced Chiefs team. And I think that's somewhat what we can expect this year, but this time it will be the Chiefs giving the lesson to the Bengals. Now, obviously that's not to say the Bengals don't have any opportunity, they can't win. There's just a lot of things working against the Bengals, and I'm not going to bet them at all, as far as betting them to win, that is. I'm not going to bet them on the spread. I'm not going to bet anything like that. And we'll kind of go over that here in just a second. But 37-31, so it's a 68-point total. It was still a one-score game. So it's kind of right on that edge, though, because it's 6 points, 1 extra point, 1 extra field goal, whatever. But it does, classify again as a one-score game. So it actually ends up being split 3-3. 3 blowout games, 3 close games. And I think that's kind of what we should expect this particular year as well, is that it's probably going to be a split. We're probably going to have 1 blowout game, 1 close game. And if just kind of the play styles and the spread and just everything that's lining up is to be believed, we would think that the Chiefs-Bengals game is going to end up being the blowout, and the Rams-49ers is going to be the close game. And I wouldn't be surprised if that 49ers-Ram game does actually come down to a field goal. So the 49ers plus 3.5. Really, really love that play. I gave that last time, but I still really love that. So what have we learned so far? Well, we should be expecting higher scoring games. The Rams-49ers is going to be the rare exception where I think that the under 47 is probably the way to go, but that's because of the 49ers playing a very specific play style, and the Rams maybe getting a little bit more conservative with Stafford to try and kind of prevent some issues, any kind of turnovers, anything like that. I would be leaning towards the under, but the under has already been hammered down, so I got the under at 47. As of right now, I think it's at like 46 or 45.5, depending on where you're looking. I'm not going to touch that one, but it may be something you look to get in game, especially because, if anything, I think that this first half, the Rams may come out strong like they did the last time against the 49ers, like they did last week against the Buccaneers, may come out and try to really put some points on the board. And if that's the case, and it's like 24-10 or whatever at halftime, there is a very good chance that the under gets popped up to like 51, and 51 is the next key number. 47 is kind of a lesser key. 47 is a key number. 48 is a lesser key number, and 51 is a key number. So if we can get it to 51, I would really, really love that under. But again, that's something you'll have to wait and see as far as what happens in the game, because it is very possible the 49ers play really good defense, keep the Rams in check, and we go to halftime at like 10-3. And in that case, obviously, under is not going to be there. In saying that, let me give you one of the picks right now, and that is actually going to be Stafford under passing yards. Stafford under, typically it's at about 279.5 right now. There's one caveat to this. This number opened up, and it just opened up yesterday for the most part, at 277.5. It has been bet up to 279.5, but every quarterback that has played this year in the playoffs against the 49ers has ended up on their under, respectively. So I don't expect Stafford to be any different. The 2 times he played the 49ers this week, they also went under. So again, we're expecting Matt Stafford to be under that yardage total. And I know that may even seem a little low, just given that he can go for 300 at any point. Like I said, I would wait as long as you can, maybe even till like a few minutes before kickoff if possible, before you take that under, because the general public is going to come in and they're going to be pounding those overs, especially if these guys who played, fantasy with Matt Stafford come in there, people who watched Stafford have a good game last week, all that kind of stuff. They're going to come in and they're going to pound that over. So I wouldn't be surprised if that over even gets to like 281, 282, maybe even higher than that, depending on how much money comes in. But that is one of the picks here, and I really, really like it. It's going to be Stafford under passing yards, at least at 279.5. Hopefully it goes up from there. But at 279.5, I do feel comfortable laying some money down on that. The other one is the Chiefs over 31 team total points. Now, like I said, we were going through this past history as far as championship games. The Chiefs have been in the last 3 championship games. They scored 31, 35, and 38 points respectively. Each year, that number keeps growing. In the postseason so far, they have put up 42 points in each game. So I don't expect that to stop now. I do believe we're going to have a lot of scoring in that game. And if you go back and watch that last game, the Bengals and Chiefs game that is, the Bengals really lucked out on a few different plays where the Chiefs just were not, I don't know, they had the ball bounce the wrong way. I think one bounced like off of Kelsey's chest and got intercepted. They had like a 4th and 1 that they didn't convert, or 4th and goal, something like that. They had a couple of really just like weird instances where they didn't convert. And if you want to give credit to the Bengals defense, by all means, I mean, you can. They were obviously there on the field, but it seemed like that was probably the last game where the Chiefs were having those issues, because the Chiefs had that issue for a long time, for like 6 or 7 weeks leading up to that game. They just kept having these weird like drops and like interceptions and bounces and all that kind of shit, and it just stopped after that game, and they've been on a roll ever since. Obviously, it's been like 3 weeks, but they've been beating the hell out of everybody. Now, one other thing that I want to bring up on this one, and the reason that I love this over 31 for the Chiefs, it actually started at 30.5, and it got bet up immediately to 31.5, and that's just, that's the way it is. But obviously, the Chiefs have not put up less than 31 points in any of their AFC Championship appearances these last 3 years. Aside from that, though, when we look at the grading algorithm, like I said, these numbers are kind of hard to rely on because we don't know their motivations. I'm not saying we don't know their motivations. We can't properly and numerically, facilitate that motivation and kind of put that into a number, right, into an algorithm. But what I have noticed with these playoffs is that typically the score that is going to come out is within 2 standard deviations of my grading algorithm and the scoring algorithm that I've put together and that we used all year long. And even this algorithm itself, we had said this earlier, it's typically better in the second half of the season when we know more about the teams, more about the players and the coaches and all that kind of stuff, and kind of the schemes that they want to use. And the first half of the season is more of that Madden algorithm where it's just like player talent level, possibly even like overcoming bad coaching or coaches kind of tinkering with some schemes and all that kind of shit. So the grading algorithm was relatively accurate. At its peak, it was about 68% accurate within 1 standard deviation as far as scoring is concerned. For the Bengals, we have it at 23.06, which let's just say it's 23. For the Chiefs, we have it 29.33. So let's just call that 29. I'm going to round it down even. So within 2 standard deviations would put us at 43 for the Chiefs, and that's essentially what I'm saying is like their peak tippity top of what they're going to score is 43 points. Now, obviously, they can score more than that because it will happen, obviously. Teams will go like 3 deviations above it. But 2 standard deviations is pretty high up there, and the Chiefs have been doing that the entire playoffs so far. 42 and 42, exactly where we're thinking they're going to be is where they are at. Now, what about the Bengals, though? How accurate is this number, right, that I've been putting together? And you can see all the math and all that kind of stuff that's been into it all year long. It hasn't changed at all, other than one tweak we made like back in week 6 or whatever. But the Bengals, we have their expected points at 23.06, like I said, and this is again a conglomeration of their one score win percentage, their EDSR, and total plays, and all that kind of stuff. So that's a whole bunch of numbers. But the important number that you need to know is the expected points is 23, and so one standard deviation would put them between about 16 and 30 points, right? Because this one touchdown is a standard deviation. Now, obviously, 2 standard deviations would just double that. But if we look at what the Bengals have put up so far, 26 points and 19 points. So they're actually within 1 standard deviation of what we would expect them to score. Now, why is this important? Is it just me, flexing, hey, like this algorithm actually worked? Sort of, a little bit. But aside from that, it's more so that the Bengals are probably going to stay within that 1 score deviation. Obviously, I wouldn't be surprised if they get to that second score. I do believe they're going to be aggressive in this game, and I believe that Zach Taylor knows field goals are not going to win this game. So if it's 4th and 1, 4th and 3, 4th and goal, whatever, he's most likely going for it as long as he's not like on the Chiefs part of the sideline. And even at that, to be totally honest with you, if I'm a coach or if I'm Zach Taylor and I'm on my own like 35, who gives a fuck? Like the Chiefs can score from wherever on the field. They can score from their own 10-yard line almost as easily as they can score from your 20-yard line. It doesn't matter. If anything, you may want to give them the ball back there, let them score faster, and get the ball right back. Because this is going to end up being a shootout. There's no way that the Bengals defense shuts out the Chiefs. It's just not going to happen. And that's not me saying that the defense isn't good enough or anything like that. It's a conglomeration of a lot of things. But the Bengals don't have the star power on the defensive side of the ball to contend with the firepower of the Chiefs. And even if they did, you're just not shutting the Chiefs out for 4 quarters, especially in a championship game. Mahomes is just playing lights out. But at the end of the day, what I really think this comes down to is that at the very, very peak of what I think the Bengals can score this week is going to be about 38 points. That's right at 2 standard deviations. And I really, really don't think that they even get that high. I would say more likely is that they're probably on about the borderline of the 1 score deviation, like 30 to 31 points. That's probably what they're going to score at. Whereas the Chiefs, we already know the 2 standard deviations is probably about their norm for the postseason, meaning that they're probably going to put up another 40-ish points, 41, 42, 44, 45, somewhere in there at the 40s. But that means a couple of things for me. So one, the Chiefs, I love the over 31, and I would put that in as soon as you can. It's going to probably go back up to 31.5 relatively soon if it hasn't already, unfortunately. But even at that, I still like it. I would really like this number all the way up to like 32, 32.5, whatever. I just like 31 because it is at least a full number, and it's kind of a key number because it includes like some field goals and things. So I think that number is amazing. I also, to a lesser extent, like the Bengals on their over because their over-under right now is like 23.5. And that's exactly where I have them graded at. So, keeping with all that, if we expect this and we expect that it's going to be a higher scoring game and the Chiefs probably do win, meaning that they're probably, at some point in this game going to be leading by at least a touchdown, and the Bengals are going to have to keep pushing this. I like the Bengals on the over 23.5. Now, I won't make that an official play. That's something that I'm going to be putting I already have put money on. And you can follow me if you like. But the 2 official plays that are going to be added right now are the Chiefs over 31 and the Stafford under his passing yardage. I'll put down 279.5 just so I can put it down on the sheet here. But keep in mind that number is going to continue going up. So if you can, wait as long as possible to get that number. So hopefully you guys will follow me in these and we can all win some money together. We'll all be on the same page here. Other than that, I hope that you learned something. I hope you like looking at the algorithm again. I know we hadn't pulled it out for a while. But that all being said, guys, Let me know if you have any questions, if there's anything you want to know about, any leans you're looking for, anything that maybe you want to just kind of bounce off of somebody else because you're going to put some money down on it. Let us know in the comments below. Thank you again. I appreciate all your support. I probably won't be able to make another video this week, but I will be tweeting out any additional picks. It'll be at AG_sports21. If you want to keep up with me there, just give me a follow. And lastly, give it a like, subscribe. I would really like to keep building this channel. And again, I will be putting out a book this summer just regarding sports betting in general and how to do it and how to handicap and all that kind of stuff. I'm going to try to keep it free. I love to just talk about it, love to give out the information. Hopefully it'll help grow the channel, and I'm going to try to give it out for free on Amazon. Once it is out there, I will make a video just saying, hey, here's the book. So thanks again, guys. You all have a great week. Good luck. I don't know if I'll be able to make a video next week because it's kind of the off week, but I do look forward to speaking with you guys for the Super Bowl and breaking down some props and things. Have a great day. Good luck, and I'll see you soon.